Hello and welcome to the Beard Talks Metal. So we're only 6 weeks into 2017, and already there's another band who were big in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s that are getting on the Reformation train, and that band is 18 Visions. So they announced on Thursday through Instagram and Facebook that they're back in the studio and are going to be looking to record a new album. So for people who don't know anything about 18 Visions, in my mind they are what I would call ground zero of everything we know about metalcore today. They started off as a kind of a more traditional metalcore act alongside bands like Poison the Well and Nora, Every Time I Die, early Every Time I Die, Aftershock, Overcast, all of those types of bands. Really fit into that period. But as they progressed through their back catalogue, they kind of introduced a lot more of the kind of the influences that I think we dislike about metalcore. The kind of the swoopy haircuts and the wearing suits and black eyeliner and all that kind of gothy stuff. Industrial elements, big influences by Marilyn Manson, etc., etc. And they carried on through until they split up in 2006. So as I say, in the early days, they were a much more of a traditional metalcore band. I think they were quite big in the kind of the straight edge scene. I distinctly remember seeing videos of them on the New England and Metal Hardcore Fest. DVDs that we used to get back in the day. It was also like the Trustkill DVDs that used to come out. So yeah, they were always really, really good live from what I could see. I've never actually seen them live myself. So they released an EP that I don't actually have in my collection back in 1997, which was called Lifeless. But the first piece I have in my collection was their first full length, which is on Trustkill Records. This is actually an 18 Visions shirt from that period that I'm wearing now. So yeah, Until the Ink Runs Out, really, really fucking heavy album. Absolutely, it's still a classic, still one that I spin on a regular basis. So it's quite a lot of influences on this album. Hardcore, metalcore, grind, death metal. They just put it all into a blender and come out with a really, really solid record. Track on there called Who the Fuck Killed John Lennon, which just has this absolutely crazy blast beat section at the end of it. So yeah, really, really enjoy that record. Definitely one to get into your collection. Following that, they did a collection piece, which, although they'd only released kind of one full length and a couple of EPs, they titled The Best of 18 Visions. And some of the interviews that I used to see of 18 Visions back in the day, their singer James Hart was certainly a slightly charismatic fellow. I don't want to say he had a big ego, but he was certainly a confident person. And I think throughout the fact that they could only release one full length at this time and then release something called The Best Of, I thought was really good. There's a really, really good quote on the inside cover of this that just says, "We're rock and roll kids playing metal music in a hardcore band." And I think that just suits them to a T. Really, really heavy across these two albums, and definitely something that I would recommend picking up as well. So moving on to the next one. Now this is called Vanity, and this I would deem is their breakout album. This is the one that really started to push them into the mainstream. They started getting onto kind of MTV and that kind of period when Xbox games and PlayStation 2 games had proper CD soundtracks, and you'd often find 18 Visions on that. So yeah, this is definitely their kind of their first real mainstream album. But they've certainly not diluted their sound by this record. It's very, very heavy still. I really, really recommend you picking this one up if you don't have it. For example, it's got guest vocals from Howard Jones, who at the time was in Blood Has Been Shed. currently ex of Killswitch Engage, and playing in Devil May Know, I think, is that what it's called? I don't know. But yeah, really good record. There's their kind of MTV hits. I don't want to say hit. You know, it was on Headbangers Ball and stuff like that. You Broke Like Glass, which is just a great track. Lots of really solid beatdowns and breakdowns in there again. And it's just a metal album, you know. It is just a real metal album. So yeah, 3 what I would call bona fide classics in a row. So the last album I got of 18 Visions was Obsession, and this is kind of what I call their bridging album. This is the one where they started to kind of have that, you know, swoopy hair and black nail polish and all that kind of junk that really kind of put me off of that whole period of metalcore. And it was kind of the start where it split into everything that we you know and probably dislike today. That being said, it's still a solid album. They've got Tower of Snakes on there, which again has got a really solid breakdown at the end of it. This is the one I don't really listen to as much as the other 3, and yeah, so it's okay. I think a lot of why they changed their sound was because they lost their guitarist Brandon, who went on to form Bleeding Through, and obviously Bleeding Through were kind of, you know, a much kind of more metal kind of bands than 18 Visions. I think he probably took a lot of his kind of sound, this metal sound with him. I think Keith Barney probably became principal songwriter at that time, which is why their kind of sound reflected those changes. Ultimately, I think they were probably looking for the big time, essentially. But you know, I think they carried on for maybe another couple of albums after Obsession, but I just didn't pay any attention to them at that time. So yeah, so they're recording their album with Mick Kenny, who you might know from Anal Nathrak. I think he's got some production credits before with Bleeding Through, but I mean, ultimately he is an extreme metal man. So you know, I've got high hopes that their new record is going to be back to the kind of heavier period of the albums that are in my collection. I know when they announced on Instagram and on Facebook that they were reforming, all of the comment sections were basically, yeah, as long as they do until the ink runs out kind of stuff. So I think it's clear that there is a market, and there's you know, what people want them to do is to go heavy. They were a great band. James Hart was a fantastic vocalist. You know, fantastic frontman as well, and he knew it, which is no bad thing. They are a reflection of the people in the band, basically. So yeah, so I'll be keeping an eye out to see when a new song drops or when the album's coming. I'm sure I'll pick it up as long as they are going down that heavy route. So I'll be sure to do a review and keep the news updated as to when that's due to be out. So yeah, so I just want to say again, thanks for all the likes and comments that I've been getting. Thanks to all of my subscribers. Would you believe in 5 weeks, I think this is going to be my 10th video, and in 5 weeks I've got over 1,000 views across my videos, which is just completely mind-blowing. So I would just want to say thanks to everybody for taking the time to click on the button and watch what I'm talking about. So yeah, so I'll see you all soon. Thanks very much.